Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I'm your host, Stacey J. Dempsey, and like always, I have with me the one of the other daughters and the one and only dad. Good morning and good afternoon to you both.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
And good morning and good afternoon to all of our viewers and our listeners. Thank you guys so much for choosing to come hang out with us for a little bit. Today, we want to talk about navigating change. We're not going to navigate change. We're not doing any of that. You know what we're going to do? We're going to understand risk and then navigate change. Okay? I'm switching it on everybody. Understanding risk and navigating change. What does that even mean? Lots of risk there can be, lots of change there can be when you're running your own business, trying to start your own business. Some certainly risk has changed over the years. You know, some things where like marketing and advertisement used to be very, very expensive. Now because of social media, it's not. So that's not so much of a big dollar risk anymore. But I'm sure that catches up in other ways. We'll find some other things to spend some money on. But Jennifer, let's start with you. Let's kind of like, why don't you kind of share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit on, before we kind of hit play, you had talked a little bit about, how long do you fight something until you just kind of give into it, really taking a look at risk and, how long do you kind of just let that go until you say, you know what, it's time to make a change. What does that change look like? And, and what can really end up happening?
I can't even believe it that in May we will be 10 years in business. Can you believe it's been 10 years? I still feel like I should be 26. I'm not sure.
Same, girl. Same.
But here we are. So, from even 10 years ago, opening a business, there's been a level of risk. That was the biggest risk, of course, but over the past 10 years, there's been different avenues of risk taking within inside of my business. And I will say, I feel like as you practice the art of risk taking, in some ways it does get not as scary. But understanding what is happening in the world, that as entrepreneurs, we always have to do that. What is happening in the world? Because like, especially my business, a lot of businesses, whatever's happening in the world is a direct reflection of what's going to happen inside of your business. And so I use this example before we hit play or start or record. Inside of a hair salon, you guys have all been in one. There's typically like a shampoo, conditioner, mousse, right? Like products for our customers to buy. And so over the years, there's been anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000 of investment in product to sell, sitting inside of the salon. And that is just what you did. Somebody somewhere said, if you own a salon, you have to sell a hair care product and you have to keep it stocked and it has to look like you have a lot. And you have to, if you have a lot, people are going to buy more and all these things, right? All these classes I took on how to sell shampoo. And we did it well, and we changed lines and we invested and then Amazon became bigger and bigger. And there were some brands that said, we're not going to sell to Amazon because we're for the hairdresser and we're only going to sell to salons. And that has all faded away over the years. So any professional hair care product you can find on Amazon, you can find at Ulta, you can get it with a coupon, right? And so working inside of the business, our customers are saying, I'm not going to buy my shampoo from you anymore. I'm going to go buy it here because I have a coupon, because I can X, Y, and Z. And so I used to be upset because I believed that, owning a hair salon, people should want to buy their shampoo and conditioner from you and support you. And, if I'm the expert and I'm telling you what to use on your hair. You should buy it from me. And after a while, I just got tired. I'm like, why do I keep fighting against the grain, fighting against the reality? And the harsh reality is everybody's buying it on Amazon anyway. So
Right.
there's the problem. And like most business owners, we come up with a solution. And so I took out all of the shampoo, conditioner products outside of my business, and everyone thought I was absolutely insane. But you know what, guys? I didn't go into business to sell shampoo and conditioner. That was never the goal. And so I had to be so real with myself and so real with everyone to say, I didn't open a salon to sell shampoo and conditioner. Let Amazon do it.
Right.
Now we have an online store. So there's still obviously an option that our clients can scan a QR code, buy their shampoo and conditioner, and have it sent to their house. And I get 25% commission. So instead of having to make the investment of buying the shampoo, selling it, restocking it, I had to hire a front desk person to do all of that. I'm actually making more money by selling it online. I'm making more bottom line profit. So something that I was so upset, I spent so many years upset about, going against the grain, crying about Amazon, actually turned out to be a risk because people thought I was crazy, and it turned out to hit my bottom line as a profit. So it all worked out. So I feel like that was very long-winded, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood the whole concept of it. But so yeah, I feel like, you know, the world is changing. Things change. Obviously, things are not going to stay the same from when we open our business to present day. And so we have to be able to understand why it's changing, understanding what our consumers want, and be able to provide that for them. And just because someone told you you have to do it that way does not mean that you have to do it that way. And you can take a risk and try something different. And maybe it doesn't work for Jack's salon around the corner, but it works for my salon here. And that is all that matters. So there's those, that's what we're talking about today, right? Is those kind of risks that, you know, can be scary and we don't know how it's going to pan out. And then in this example, it actually worked out so much better than I could have expected. And I still have new clients that come into my business and they're like, where's all your shampoo and conditioner? Not because they want to buy it, because they just expect to see it. You know, they just, that's just what you're supposed to do. And so if you know anything about me, I do the opposite of what you're supposed to do. So pretty much everything I do is a major risk taking, at least within the beauty industry.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect example, really. And we've talked about this before too, is that, starting businesses today, whatever it may be, whether it's retail, service, online, but whatever it is, it's a much not easier. I keep wanting to say easier. It's the risk, the financial risk is much lower than what it was, not that long ago because of technology. So so I think that, in today's world, the opportunity to step into entrepreneurship has gotten financially more feasible for more people.
Yeah.
Now, does it make it easier? No, it's still hard work. And, it still takes time.
Yeah.
I think the other, so that's the benefit on the technology side. Then the other question you have to ask is, yes, technology is going to allow me to get into entrepreneurship, get into business, less expensive, and it's more feasible. However, also, what does the risk technology bring back to my business? Like Jennifer, just alluded to, there's, technology allows people to get into business, but then you have to look at technology and say, okay, where's the threats of technology in my business? Now, And for those of our listeners that have had, we'll call it the brick and mortar retail, or that type of operation, that's something you really need to be asking yourself that question. Because if you're not feeling the impact of technology on, especially retail, you probably will at some point. Whether it's the Amazon effect or whatever the case may be. So I was meeting with a client not long ago who has, sells different things, in a retail, right in Main Street, and a lot of foot traffic, and she's done pretty well there, but definitely seeing the drop off of people buying products. They come in, they look around, but they're not buying as much and so the concern is, all right, are they looking around, seeing the products, then leaving and seeing how they get a better deal on Amazon,
Right.
or those kind of things. So so she's beginning to transition away from the storefront into her own same stuff, but just doing it online, and being able to then, as you said, Jennifer, just have a good online presence where people can see the products, but then when they purchase it, they're not purchasing it from her. She's just getting a commission, or
Yes.
commission off of the sale of those products.
Right.
But she said, it's so I guess my question, to some entrepreneurs out there, are you trying to hang on to something that's maybe not the best use of your investment dollars, because retail is getting impacted, and if you're not getting that right now, um, you probably will. So does it make sense to say, okay, maybe I should be building something, a different model, or starting to incorporate a different model, or add a different model, meaning online presence, with my business, so that if we start to see that downturn, you know, I'm not starting from scratch when, things are already heading down. I've already kind of got everything in the works to even make that transition. So, we talked about, again, the food business, how that's changed, right? I mean, um, you know, the days of, calling in and ordering a pizza and then driving, driving to the place and picking it up or having it delivered, I mean, now it's just people want to be, just
That's
do it
right.
right here, right? All the way from ordering it to having it delivered. They don't want to talk to anybody. They just want it. And so, if you don't have that presence in your, food business, depending on, again, the type of food you're selling, you're probably going to get impacted by that at some point in your business. So, there's, it's an interesting time to be an entrepreneur. That's for sure, man. It's always been an interesting time to be an entrepreneur, but technology really is changing the game for sure. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Jennifer mentioned, I mean, even in say like the hair business, just her model of, she started her business under like the traditional model of, the front desk person, the assistant, the multiple stylists, the managing their hours, their time off, doing the whole thing, and then just being like, just because it's been like this, most other salons do it this way, it's not working here. It's not working here for several different
Or
reasons.
you
So
just evolve, right? Like
you just
things
evolve.
change and you evolve and you accept that, it doesn't have to be this way. I
Yeah.
think, and a lot of times we talk about like, how do you, even though you're an entrepreneur, how do you do business with other people? Are you going into a store to buy clothes, or are you buying clothes online? I know, especially the season I'm in, it's a lot of like baby gadgets and baby gear, right? There's no real baby stores anymore for me to go look at things. So in my world, it's a lot of like, I'm following people that are giving a review on this baby carrier and then I'm buying it and they're getting commission off of it, right? So,
Right,
you know,
right.
people are that's how people are shopping. So, you know, it would be silly to go against the grain. And you know, I don't think all in-store shopping is dead, obviously, but I think it is just about evolving with the times and understanding that there's certain things that you have to do. I told you guys earlier, I have a client who does own a pizza shop and he dislikes DoorDash, like wishes he didn't have to do, but he knows that he has to have DoorDash. He's like, there's a whole generation that, like, you can go on DoorDash at 9 a.m., order your pizza to be delivered at 12 o'clock. Like, I just, even though he doesn't like doing business that way, he knows that that is a portion of his business that he just has to suck it up and deal with because that's how some consumers want to do business. And so
Right.
it always comes full circle of understanding how your clients, how your consumers want to do business with you and adding value to that. But I'm agree. Like just because you opened your business a certain way, same thing with you, Dad. Obviously, how you opened your business is not the same that you're doing business today. It all evolves. And so if you want to stay in business, then you have to evolve with the times. And there's always going to be a level of risk taking that comes along with evolving.
Yeah, always. And you're right. I mean, when I was talking about the retail, I mean, in our world of insurance and financial services, um, we're, seeing definitely more and more online presence. I mean, shopping for auto insurance or even life insurance. There's a lot of places out there that, that advertise for that. Um, now right now, what we find is most people still like to talk to someone, ask questions, and make sure. But we're even seeing more and more, on the investment advisory front, companies that'll do it, or companies that'll do it online, and you know. So, and again, I have more and more meetings, this way, through technology than I ever have. But again, I mean, so far in our business, you know, and of course, probably part of that's my generation. They want to see my face. They want to have conversations. They don't want to deal with someone online that they don't have a relationship with. Now, but as a business owner, I still have to be thinking about that. It's like, all right, well, is that my generation, or as the subsequent generations, come on board into kind of that area of the marketplace, are they going to be more open to doing things, you know, the DoorDash way? I don't want to have a conversation with anybody. I just want to do everything online, you know, so we need to be ready for that, to some extent, that we can, have a presence in that space, and be able to continue to, drive revenue and bring value. It's coming, all that, trying to, I think today's topic was good. Is if you're sitting here and you're like, I want to, I'm looking to get into a business. Well, good. That's what this podcast is for. And now's a good time because, you don't need millions of dollars to open up a business. And you don't even need to quit your full-time job because, technology allows you to do things differently. Um, for those that are in business and starting to feel the impact of technology, yes, you can't sit on your hands about it. You need to be understanding what it is, how's it impacting it, how can I take advantage of that, like Jen, has discovered in her business, and so, or what's coming down the pike where I need to start getting prepared for and not be caught behind the curve. So technologies, really. and this is probably a future podcast, but we talked a little earlier too, is, I mean, and technology is becoming more and more disruptive out there in the career market. We're definitely seeing where
Yeah.
companies are, being able to downsize people in place of, technology, AI, and those kind of things. So, so, so if you're in a position, a career where you think, you know what, my, you know, my position is vulnerable to technology. Well, maybe it's time to say, okay, start figuring out that side hustle,
Yeah.
to start working on, because you know maybe if that were to occur, that side hustle something then you can transition to, because you've already got it. You know, you got some momentum there. So again, another area that I think is good to be thinking about.
Yeah, good point. Good point and good conversation. I mean, the reality of it is change is inevitable. Change is going to happen. And hopefully today, maybe the nugget alert that you took away is, after a while, just don't fight it. Go with the flow. Lean into it and see how maybe uh, the change or the risk that was coming actually might increase your bottom line. So we hope you guys have found this helpful. We'll see you guys in our next episode. Bye bye.